Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfiction guy. Back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Got Offer from Death? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Let's begin. Izuku Yagi, formerly Izuku Shimura. Age 18. Personality, quiet, kind to those who treat him well, sadistic to those he hunts, caring for his daughter, and deeply troubled. Likes: whistling, hunting down his targets, eliminating fake heroes and villains, spending time with Eri. Dislikes: AFO, villains, Shigaraki, arrogance, disrespect, the Yagi family, Bakugou, the Todoroki twins, Class 1A, fake heroes, and the corrupt government. Abilities/skills: supernatural strength, speed, temporary immortality, skilled fighter, pyrokinesis, soul collecting, teleportation, tracking, weapon transmutation, high intelligence, intimidation, proficiency with sickles and scythes, multilingual, anonymity, levitation, wraith form, shadow step, death blossom. Weapons: dual sickles, dual-bladed scythe, hellfire shotgun, dual donner. Chapter End. Izuku, please stop. Bakugou, why should we listen to a Deku? They continued to attack Izuku until it went too far, and he fell silent. Izuku, so I'm dead, huh? Mouthful, yes, but we have something to offer you that you might find interesting. Izuku, I'm listening. Aizawa, you all did what? He screamed at the teens in the living room, who had just finished beating All Might while Inko sobbed uncontrollably. Izumi, crying he's gone, we killed him. Gran Torino, you better be joking, young lady, because you'll meet the same fate as this failure of a hero. He pointed at the bloodied All Might. HPSC, I'm sorry, but I can't let you arrest them. Aizawa, why? HPSC, because they are the future generation, and if the public finds out, people will lose faith in heroes. This reasoning frustrated Aizawa, who walked away from the meeting as they continued to discuss covering it up. Death. Izuku, it is time. Reaper, time to show the world who you are. Mouthful, show them what happens when they mess with death. Izuku emerged from the darkness, wielding the dual sickles Mouthful had given him. In a random warehouse, a gang leader dealing in cork drags was running away. He looked back but saw no one. As he glanced up, a shadowy figure appeared in front of him, causing him to halt. Izuku, I just love the smell of fear. The gang leader ran toward the exit sign, relief washing over him, only to be stopped as the shadow figure materialized before him. As he attempted to inject the cork drag, Izuku swiftly cut his left arm, causing him to scream in agony. Gang leader, WW, what are you? Izuku stood before him, delivering the chilling words that would haunt every hero and villain. Izuku, I am. Death. The leader began to breathe heavily and rapidly. Izuku, what's the matter? It had not been a good life for Izuku Yagi. Ever since he was diagnosed as quirkless, everything changed. His friends turned their backs on him, his family ignored him, and even his sister wanted nothing to do with him. Former friends bullied him relentlessly, and he felt powerless to stop them. Voices in his head urged him to, let them be, your time will come. On the last day of middle school, while other students celebrated, Izuku felt trapped. As soon as the bell rang, he grabbed his belongings and ran, but was caught by Tenya Ida, the fastest student in school. Ida, and where do you think you're going, Deku? Izuku trembled with fear. Izuku, I was. Ida, do you think you could escape us that easily? We have something special for you. Before he could protest, Ida dragged him to the back of the school, where the rest of Class 1A awaited. Ida, look who tried to escape. He threw Izuku toward the others, who quickly restrained him. Izumi, and where do you think you're going, brother? She lifted him using her quirk, while Bakugou and the Todoroki twins approached. Katsuki, oh I Deku, she's asking you, Demon quirkless. He struck Izuku with his quirk, causing him to cry out in pain. Izuku, IW has just joined home. Izumi, home? Then why were you running? Izuku, I just wanted to get home early. As he felt his legs grow cold, he realized ice was wrapping around him, courtesy of the Todoroki twins. Shoto, and what makes you think we are done with you? Izuku, please stop. Katsuki, why should we listen to you, Deku? He shouted as an explosion erupted in front of him, while Shoto and Shoka kept him frozen. Ida landed a devastating kick on his back, sending him flying toward the forest, where he collided with a tree. He groaned, feeling helpless. Even if he could defend himself, they would just lie to the faculty and his parents, protecting their prized students instead. As he began to lose consciousness, he heard them screaming as if they were fighting. Ida, did you kick him too hard? Izumi shouted. I'm sorry, Ida started to explain. You weren't thinking, you idiot. Shoka interjected. Our goal was just to hurt him badly and show him how dangerous being a hero can be, but this is too far. You could have broken his back. Mina added. As they scolded Ida for the reckless idea that Katsuki suggested, Katsuki approached Izuku. Don't worry, the nerd is fine, he said, grabbing Izuku's hair to make him look up. What the, Katsuki? Mina exclaimed. Look, his fine, Katsuki began, but before he could finish, Izuku instinctively punched him, causing Katsuki to fall. What the heck do you? Katsuki shouted. You all call yourselves heroes, Izuku said, slowly standing up while leaning against the tree for support. As far as I'm concerned, you're all far from it. He managed to stand, holding his side with one hand and wiping blood from his lips with the other. You all claim to be heroes, but in reality, you are far from it. Heroes not only fight villains but also save lives, regardless of quirks. What I see now are not future heroes, but future villains. His words shocked them to the core. Izuku, the sweet and innocent person they knew, was calling them villains. Oni-chan, you don't mean that, Izumi said, tears in her eyes. But Izuku was done. He had finally snapped. He recalled the hurtful things they had said to him. You're useless, you shouldn't be living. Take a dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in your next life. I don't know why I have a brother like you, he remembered, feeling the anger boil inside him. Iken, you don't mean those words, right? Katsumi asked. Right, Aizu, you aren't saying, Shoka started, but before she could reach him, he swatted her hand away. You stay the hell away from me, he shouted, making her step back. He had never shouted before. You think you can just buddy up to me, you ungrateful? Yahi, that is unacceptable behavior. Apollo, Ida began, but Izuku cut him off. Do you ever shut up, you worthless engine? The words silenced Ida, and the others couldn't believe what they were hearing. I've had enough of you all. I've endured your pain long enough. Mina started, but Izuku interrupted. Shut up, he yelled, causing her to cry as memories of her past surfaced. Hey, Izubro, that's just gone too far. Kirishima said. Too far, huh? Coming from you, worthless piece of... Oi, you better watch what you're saying or I'll... Kill me then. Go ahead and do it. Show me who you really are. Izumi cried. Onin, stop. Izumi pleaded. Show me how the real villain you are, Katsuki Bakugou. Izuku shouted. Katsuki could take it no longer and released a massive explosion point blank, forcing everyone to shield their faces from the blast. As the smoke cleared, they saw Katsuki standing, pointing his hands at Izuku, who stood there with his uniform burned and revealing his scars. Everyone gasped. Congratulations, Bakugou, for becoming a villain, Izuku said before collapsing. Everyone rushed to him, except for those who were scolding Bakugou, while Kaminari and Shiro held Izumi back from attacking him. Guys, I don't hear his heartbeat, Jiro said, making everyone stop and look at her. You're kidding, right? Hagakure asked. No, I'm not. I don't hear his pulse, Jiro insisted, and panic spread among them. Oni-chan, Izumi said, lightly slapping Izuku's face, but there was no response. Tears streamed down her face. This wasn't part of the plan. They only meant to hurt him so he could stop being a hero, but instead, they felt they had killed him. Katsuki, in a moment of desperation, suggested, let's bury him. Everyone looked at him as if he were crazy. What did you say? Mina asked. I said we bury him, Katsuki repeated. You're out of your mind, Katsuki. You already killed him, and now you want to bury him. Katsumi shouted. It is the only way. Katsuki insisted. What do you mean, only way? Izumi exclaimed. For keeping us in prison and becoming a hero. Katsuki replied. Is that all you think about? Being a hero? You're nothing but a selfish. That's rich coming from you. Katsuki shot back. As they continued to argue, they didn't notice that night had fallen until they heard a voice calling out, Ichai, anyone there? They all looked toward the source of the light, panic rising as they realized they didn't know what to do. Katsuki grabbed Deku's leg, dragging him behind the only tree that had survived the explosion. Katsuki, we don't have a choice now. Start digging. Without time to think, they began to dig. Momo created a shovel to speed up the process, but they kept it shallow, only about 5 to 6 feet deep, believing that would be enough. Katsuki threw Izuku's body into the hole, causing everyone to wince at his actions. Izumi hit Bakugou, making him groan as they started to bury him. Izumi, don't worry, Oni-chan, we will come back tomorrow. Katsuki, Iken will come back. Shoka, we will be back. The trio reassured each other as they finished burying him. Afterward, they all started to run away from the area just as the guards arrived, unaware that these were not ordinary security personnel. A hooded figure spoke, "It is time for the fake security," and began to change into armor. Suddenly, a pool of shadows appeared beside him, revealing another hooded person with a mask and 2 guns. From the trees emerged a third hooded figure, whistling, his appearance reminiscent of a wolf. The 3 stood together, gazing at the spot where they had buried the boy. It seems you were right, it is time. I never thought they would do something like this. Believe it, Lobo, one of them said. What they did was beyond stupidity. We know how furious we are, Reaper. But that all changes now. Agree, Malthal? I know, Malthal replied, pointing at the ground, which began to shift. It is time, my boy, for you to rise. Finish our task, and we will grant you what you longing. Now come and rise. The ground moved suddenly, and a fist shot up, stretching its fingers. The time has come for you to rise to a new era. To the new fear. To the new hunter. You shall become the new symbol of death. Meanwhile, at the Yagi household, the family and friends gathered for a long-awaited reunion. Everyone was chatting and catching up, enjoying the moment, except for Aizawa, who leaned against the stairs. A nagging feeling of unease had settled over him since he arrived. Deciding to investigate, he wandered around the house. Everything seemed normal until he reached a wall of family pictures. One detail struck him. Izuku was missing from the photos. Why isn't Izuku in any of these pictures? He mumbled to himself, feeling compelled to search further. Sneaking upstairs, he found 3 doors near the stairs and one at the end of the hallway. As he approached the last door, a familiar, unpleasant scent wafted toward him. Aizawa thought, this smells like blood. He opened the unlocked door and was met with a sight reminiscent of an abandoned hospital. A bed that looked like it belonged in an asylum, a few clothes, a broken desk, and some medicine capsules littered the surface. The foul smell emanated from a trash can near the bed, filled with bandages stained with dried blood. Is this really Izuku's room? What have Inko and Tashinori done? His gaze fell on a notebook under the pillow titled Diary. Hesitant at first, he decided to read it. Day 1, 4 years old Izuku. Today was the day my sister and I got our quirks. We were so excited. When Izumi got her quirk, I was thrilled for her, but the doctor's words shocked me. I was quirkless. Everyone celebrated Izumi, leaving me alone. I thought it was just for one day, that everything would return to normal. Aizawa gripped the notebook tightly, fighting the urge to tear it apart. He needed to calm down and read on. It's been 5 days since we visited the quirk doctor. Ever since Izumi got her quirk, everyone has been distant. My family, my friends, even the Todoroki and Bakugou twins. The only ones who still care are Uncle Aizawa, Uncle Nizu, Grandpa Rino, Big Brother Natsu, Big Sister Fuyumi, Uncle David, Melissa, and even Big Brother Toya, who sends me letters from his missions. He promises to teach me hand-to-hand combat when he returns, just like Uncle Aizawa. But for now, I don't mind waiting. Aizawa couldn't help but smile for a moment, remembering his promise to train Izuku. He reflected on how well Izuku had been doing. However, as he continued reading, he came across a page that made him very upset. Day 2190, 10 years old. Ever since school started, people began to distance themselves from me, and my friends turned their backs on me when they found out I was quirkless. To make matters worse, they started to bully me. The teachers didn't intervene, no matter how many times I pleaded for help. When I tried to defend myself using what Uncle Aizawa and Big Brother Toya taught me, I ended up in the principal's office. I tried to explain, but they ignored me. When I got home, I was met by angry parents of my friends and my sister, who scolded me for defending myself. I attempted to explain, but they wouldn't listen. My parents punished me, saying I couldn't go on the family outing, which felt incredibly unfair. I was left alone, just like always. I was fuming and ready to explode, planning to confront all of them. But before I could, I glanced at the last page of my notebook. I had a bad feeling about it, but I needed to find out what happened. Day 3650, 15 years old. I can't take it anymore. The pain hurts so much. They bully me every single day. No matter how hard I try to stop them, they just keep going until I feel my body giving up. I hear voices in my head telling me, "Don't worry, your time will come." I don't know why, but I listen, and I feel my injuries heal and my strength increase. Yet I lack the courage to fight back. After school, all I want is to go home, but Izumi and the gang always stop me for their daily torment. The worst part was Katsuki's cruel advice. Take a swan dive off the roof and pray for the next life when you have a quirk. With an injured body, I forced myself to walk home, even though it hurt. Then I was attacked by a sludge villain. I thought I was going to die, but I heard a man and woman's voices, and then I was blasted away. I was knocked out by the force of the impact. When I woke up, I saw the number 1 hero, All Might, and the number 10 hero, Emerald Telek. I was fanboying and asked for their autographs, which they both smiled and provided. Just as they were about to leave, I asked, "Can a quirkless person be a hero?" My world shattered when All Might replied that I couldn't become a hero without a quirk. It was a good dream, but not a reality. I felt broken as he left me alone with Emerald Telek. Just as I was about to leave, she placed a hand on my shoulder and said something that gave me a glimmer of hope. Being a hero is not easy, young one. There are many hardships that even the strongest quirk can't handle. If your dream is to become a hero, your journey will be much harder than anyone else's. Are you sure you still want to be a hero? I answered yes without hesitation. She smiled and gave me an emerald gem, saying, "Keep this as a token. If I reach the top 20 heroes, give it to me as a reminder that you accomplished your goal." She floated away, leaving me with a bit of hope. When I arrived home, I found Mom and Dad in the living room with my sister and my childhood friends. They were having a serious conversation, and I was shocked to discover that Dad was All Might and Mom was Emerald Telek. They revealed their identities, and what shocked me most was that All Might offered Katsuki his quirk. Izumi asked why he didn't give it to me, and he said, "He doesn't have what it takes to be a hero." Those words broke me. I went upstairs, not bothering to confront them. I kept thinking, was it all a lie? Did Emerald Telek only give me false hope? Did I really not have what it takes to be a hero? Those thoughts spiraled in my mind as I cried myself to sleep, wishing for someone to save me. As Aizawa read the final entry, tears fell down his face. He felt both sad and furious. Just as he was about to close the notebook, he noticed something at the end of the page, a bracelet inscribed with "Promise" and 3 necklaces, one shaped like a snowflake, another resembling a missile, and the last one the emerald gem. He immediately recognized who they belonged to. There was a note, which he folded and placed in his pocket. As he made his way downstairs, he saw all the children gathered, which made it easier to find them. Scanning the area, he spotted the person he was looking for in the backyard, talking to Naomasa Tsukachi and Enji Todoroki. Aizawa approached them, focused on the individual who had hurt Izuku. As he got closer, he stood there for a moment, and Toshinori said, Shota, is there some? Before he could finish, Aizawa punched him, shocking everyone present. The most laid-back yet hard-working hero had just struck the #1 hero in Japan. As Toshinori recovered, he looked at Aizawa, who was staring him down while Naomasa and Enji held him back, knowing how strong he was. Aizawa shouted, "You're a hypocrite, He shouted as everyone stared at him, confused about why he was so angry. Everyone was still in shock from what had happened while Enji and Naomasa held Aizawa back. Aizawa, you hypocrite! Telling him that he has what it takes to be a hero. Toshinori, what are you talking about? He said as he stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his lips while Inko and Izumi helped him to his feet. Aizawa, why don't you think about it, you blonde moron? Before things could escalate further, Nizu interjected, Now, everyone. How about we head inside and discuss this? His relaxed tone belied the seriousness of the situation. Aizawa listened and headed inside, glaring at the others, making them shiver and look down in fear as the rest followed him. Everyone sat except for Aizawa, who remained standing and glaring at the teens. Nizu spoke up, Aizawa, I want to know why you punched Toshinori. You must have a reason, right? Aizawa, yes, but before that, I'm going to ask a question to the teens. The teens flinched at his tone. Aizawa, Yagi, come forward. When Izumi was called, she was scared. She had learned from Uncle Aizawa not to anger him. Izumi, Weiss, Uncle? Aizawa, do you know where Izuku is now? Everyone in the room looked at him, confused about why he was asking about Izuku. Toshinori, what are you talking about? Izuku is in his room, just like Izumi said a moment ago. Aizawa, I didn't ask you, hypocrite. I'm asking your brat. Everyone looked at him, puzzled by his choice of words. Izumi, he's in his room. Aizawa, really? Izumi, yes. Lie. Everyone turned to see Naomasa standing to the side. Naomasa, what do you mean, Aizawa, then tell me, and I'm not asking again, where is Izuku? Izumi couldn't meet Aizawa's gaze, tears forming in her eyes. Aizawa noticed this. Aizawa, what did you do? Aizawa, enough. You're scaring her. Aizawa, that's the point. If she doesn't answer my question. Inko interjected. She said Izuku is in his room. Why are you still pressuring her? Aizawa, because I was in Izuku's room and he wasn't there. The teens flinched, wide-eyed. Naomasa, he's telling the truth. I don't sense a lie in his words. Inko, Izumi, why did you lie? Enji, more importantly, what were you doing in Izuku's room, Aizawa? Aizawa, I wanted to see him since I haven't seen him because I've been busy with my hero work and teaching at UA. But back to my question, where is he? Last chance, Izumi. His voice dripped with venom, and AM had enough. Enough, Shota. Clearly, if she's lying then okay, but what's it got to do with Izuku? Aizawa, then tell me, Yagi, when was the last time you and your wife spent time with Izuku? Before they could respond, they all thought hard about when they last saw him, but none could remember. Inko suddenly ran off, followed by Rei, Mitsuki, and Momo's mother. Aizawa already knew where they were headed. Aizawa then looked at the teens' parents. Aizawa, and tell me, when was the last time any of you saw Izuku? They all paused, trying to remember, but none could. Just then they heard something break. They turned to see a flower vase shattered, drawers open, and photo albums scattered everywhere. Inko was sobbing, and the three women were trying their best to comfort her, but it was no use. She kept muttering, my baby. Aizawa, so you don't know? He looked at them, then back at the rest. Aizawa, none of you know where he is? None could reply because they didn't know. Aizawa, that's it, he shouted suddenly, wrapping his capture gear around Izumi before she could react. He pulled her forcefully to him and spoke with an authority that even Nizu had never seen since his mother left him. Aizawa, where is he? He shouted, making Izumi scared as tears began to fall. The rest of her friends couldn't do anything, and the adults, Nizu, Inko, Mitsuki, Rei, and Momo's mom, were frightened because they had never seen him this angry. Aizawa, where's Izuku? Just as All Might was about to intervene, he felt a kick to his injured side and saw Gran Torino. Sir, but Torino, you stay down. What's good for you, boy? What are you? Torino, I connected the dots. What Aizawa is talking about, while he was talking to you all, I took a quick look around the place, and what I saw is nothing but disappointment in this house. NG, what? Torino, for God's sake, you all neglected Izuku. Are you all nitwits that you didn't figure out why Aizawa's mad at you? They all thought about it and began to realize they had never taken the time to spend with their nephew, especially the Bakugou and Todoroki families. Now they started to feel guilty. The Chaco's mom, then we should apologize to Izuku and make things right. The adults nodded, and as Inko was about to go upstairs to check on him, Aizawa planned to stop them but decided to let Izumi go for now. He went to the couch where Nizu was seated, waiting. Aizawa pulled out Izuku's notebook and handed it to Nizu, who looked at Aizawa for a moment before starting to read. With each page he flipped, his expression darkened, and he passed it to Gran Torino, then to the detective. They were all furious. Then they heard a scream upstairs, prompting the teens to rush up. Aizawa was about to follow when Nizu raised his paws, signaling for him to let them be, and he signaled the detective to follow the sound. A few hours after the initial confrontation, Naomasa entered with a furious expression, standing by the couch where Nizu, Aizawa, and Gran Torino were seated. The rest of the group stood on the opposite side, while Inko sat on the couch, nearly having a mental breakdown. Her daughter Izumi, along with Rei and Mitsuki, tried their best to comfort her, but their efforts had been in vain. Nizu's voice cut through the tension, cold and threatening. What do you have to say for yourselves, Toshinori, Inko, Izumi? His eyes glowed with intensity, and the atmosphere in the room shifted. I see words that I cannot describe to all of you, something beyond disappointment. Sir, Ida began, but Nizu silenced him with a glare. Did I give you permission to speak? Nizu continued, his tone unforgiving. As far as I'm concerned, all of you will have your paychecks cut to 75%. Before they could protest, he added, did you ever wonder how I funded the robots for the entrance exam? I made a few deals, I invest, I own a business, and I can do anything within my power. The adults exchanged glances, contemplating his words. Mr. Yaoyorozu spoke up, Mr. Nizu, you don't mean you are? Oh, you catch on quite well, Mr. Yaoyorozu. Yes, I am your anonymous benefactor for each job you all work for. After all, being the principal can be boring sometimes, so why not diversify? My quirk is quite useful in any intellectual endeavor. There's no one better than me except for Izuku. It's rare to find someone as smart as him, even without a quirk. Katsuki couldn't contain himself. What's so special about that quirkless freak? Mitsuki slapped him on the head. Katsuki, show some respect. Katsuki shot back. What's so special about this rat anyway? Masaru interjected. Katsuki, he is the principal of UA. The room fell silent, and Katsuki looked at Nizu with a mix of fear and defiance. Nizu regarded him with disinterest. So, you wish to enroll in my school? Because of Katsuki's ego, he smirked and said, yeah, I'm one of the extras enrolling to become the #1 hero. His confidence was met with disdain from his peers, while Nizu remained unimpressed. I see, Nizu replied, continuing his train of thought. Izuku is the only person who can match my intellect, even without a quirk. I was about to make him my apprentice. The adults shivered at the thought of Izuku being trained by Nizu himself. But it seems that won't happen since Izuku is not here. I know he doesn't have friends because he is quirkless, and people tend to distance themselves, including all of you. Inko stammered, but I would never. Aizawa interrupted, when was the last time you spent time with him? The question echoed in her mind, and she struggled to recall a moment, feeling the weight of her failure as his mother. Izumi spoke up, he's not coming back. The room fell silent, and the other teens looked down, except for Katsuki, who glared at her. The adults exchanged shocked glances, while Nizu and Aizawa narrowed their eyes. What do you mean he's not coming back? Nizu demanded, his authority palpable. Izumi hesitated, then said, I is dead. Aizawa's expression darkened. What did you do? WK killed him, Izumi stammered. The room fell silent, the only sound the ticking of the clock. Aizawa flipped a small table, making everyone jump except those on his side of the couch. He approached Izumi, grabbing her uniform and lifting her off the ground, causing fear to ripple through the students, even Katsuki. You all did what? Aizawa shouted. Aizawa, put her down. All Might interjected, but was met with a powerful kick from Gran Torino, who glared at him. Stay down, Toshinori. Izumi cried. He's gone. We killed him. That better be a joke, young lady, because you will face the same fate as this failure of a hero, Gran Torino warned. Naomasa spoke up. She's not lying. Aizawa's anger intensified as he pulled Izumi closer. Did the other brats participate in this? She could only nod, fear gripping her. Aizawa tossed her aside, and All Might rushed to check on her. Inko was in disbelief at what she had just heard. Aizawa turned to the group, his voice stern. Are you all heroes? Or villains? Everyone looked up at him in shock. Aizawa, how could you say that? They're just kids. All Might protested. Right now, I'm not talking to kids. I'm addressing a group of murderers who think they're heroes but are nothing more than villains in disguise, Aizawa said, venom in his words. The teens felt the sting of his accusation, especially Katsuki, who was silenced by Aizawa's glare. Now, Izumi, get into your failure of a parent's car and lead us to where you left Izuku. The rest of you will follow. Do you understand? None of them answered. Aizawa shouted, I said, do you understand? All the teens responded, yes, sir. Nizu continued, then it's settled. We leave immediately, and after that, we will be having a very serious discussion about what to do with you all. He, along with Aizawa, GT, and Naomasa, walked out, leaving the others in a dreadful atmosphere. The parents began to drag their kids to their cars, with the Yagi family going first, followed by Naomasa's car, as the rest followed. Unbeknownst to them, someone was watching closely. Lobo chuckled to himself, you are already too late, for he will have the soul of every hero and villain in the world. He disappeared into the darkness of an alley, returning to his world where he met with Malthul and Reaper. Lobo said, they're on the move. Malthul replied, it won't matter, for soon he will be the new face of death to the world. Lobo asked, when will he wake up? The three looked at Izuku, who was floating in front of them. Reaper answered, he already is. Izuku had finally awakened. It was a quiet car ride, too quiet. Izumi was lost in thought about how to face her deceased brother. M was anxious about what would happen later, while Inko was overwhelmed with memories of Izuku. She recalled the visit to the quirk doctor and the emerald she had given him, promising herself that she would always watch over him. Regret washed over her as she realized she had been too busy to keep that promise, often stopped by Toshi or other families. Now, she prayed that what Izumi said was a lie. Behind their car, Aizawa, Naomasa, and Nizu remained silent, hoping the teens were just joking. Naomasa gripped the steering wheel tightly, knowing that Izumi was telling the truth, which he hated. He would have to arrest those children for their actions. Aizawa leaned against the window, observing the darkening clouds, a sign that rain was coming. He contemplated the outcome, knowing that if she found out about what happened tonight, she would do anything to cover it up. Even Nizu would be powerless against her. The car stopped in front of the school and the Yagi family got out, followed by the others. They made their way to the forest behind the school, where they last saw Izuku. Izumi said, here, as they stopped near a fallen tree. Rain began to pour, but they remained still until Aizawa spoke. All of you dig. Mamam hesitated, unable to create a shovel, and looked at Aizawa, whose quirk was active and glaring at her and the others. I said dig. I didn't say you could create a shovel. Protests died in their throats at his fierce gaze. Even Katsuki fell silent. They knelt down and began to dig with their hands, their uniforms getting dirty, but they pressed on. The parents felt pity for them, knowing they were in this situation and could do nothing but watch. Minutes passed until Shoji exclaimed, "I got something." He dug through the dirt and uncovered something they wished was just a nightmare, a half-face of Izuku. The women present covered their mouths in shock, while the men looked away, unable to face what their children had done. The Yagi family could hardly believe their eyes as they saw their son buried before them. The tormentors could not look at Izuku, and the girls began to cry, while the boys hung their heads, except for Katsuki. Aizawa shouted, "Did I tell you to stop?" They looked at him with tear-filled eyes. "You all put him there, now you will get him out." "Dig," he commanded, making them flinch, except for Nizu, who looked down, saddened by the loss of his favorite nephew. As they resumed digging, an unknown force pushed them aside. They turned to see Inko, her quirk active, using her power to remove the remaining dirt burying Izuku. She rushed to his body, hugging him tightly and whispering that she was there. But the damage was already done. The others gathered around her, hearing her cries as tears fell from their faces, silence enveloping the area until Naomasa arrived with a white sheet. He approached Inko, who was still holding Izuku's body, and gently covered him, taking Izuku away from her as she struggled to stand, overwhelmed by grief. Inko cried out, "No, my baby, please don't take him away from me." She shouted and cried, but her legs wouldn't let her move. She gave up and looked toward where Izuku was being carried away, tears streaming down her face. Izumi tried to confront her, but it felt useless. Nizu spoke solemnly, "Tonight, we have lost a very precious person who can never be replaced. We failed our duty as heroes to protect the innocent, and we failed as a family to protect the loved ones we hold dearly. That is the burden we must carry through our lives. We will hold his funeral in 2 days, and I hope all of you can attend." He walked back toward the car, leaving the others to grieve. Before he could leave, he paused and delivered a painful truth. "I will say this to you all, you have failed as parents to teach your children what is right and wrong." Aizawa added, "And you young ones have failed the most important part of being a hero, saving innocent lives. From what I see, you took away his life. None of you are fit to be heroes." He had just returned from placing Izuku in the back seat of Naomasa's car. He lifted Nizu onto his shoulder and walked back to the car, driving away and leaving the others to reflect on Nizu's and Aizawa's words. Despite their attempts to deny it, the parents knew they were right. They had failed as parents. The children, too, reflected on their actions, realizing they had caused the death of an innocent person, making them feel like villains. One by one, the parents left, each wearing expressions of disappointment, both for themselves and their children. The Yagi family remained, struggling to move Inko, who wouldn't budge as she muttered, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," over and over until she finally passed out from mental exhaustion. Somewhere in the void, there was no life except for a certain green-haired boy standing atop a building, confused about his surroundings. "Where am I?" he wondered. A voice spoke behind him, "You are in between life and death, my boy." He turned to see 3 cloaked figures, one resembling a wolf, another with 2 guns at his side, and the last one floating with barely visible wings. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Izuku," said Lobo. "What do you," Izuku began, but then recalled everything that had happened to him. "I'm dead." "Yes," Malthul confirmed, "but we have something to offer you that you might find interesting." "What makes you think I'm interested?" Izuku asked. "Let's just say this is something that can only be offered once in a lifetime," Lobo replied. "And what is that?" Izuku inquired. "A second chance at life," Reaper said, as they walked past him and looked down at the empty city. "And that is—" Izuku pressed. "Kill," Malthul stated. "What?" Izuku exclaimed. "We want you to kill," Malthul repeated. "But I don't care," Izuku started to protest. "We know you don't kill because you're an innocent boy, but we will teach you everything you need to know," Lobo assured him. "While you were unconscious, we observed your world, and it is filled with sins," Reaper added. An orb appeared in front of Izuku, revealing the dark secrets of the Hero Society. He watched in silence, recalling his past, his pain, and the darkest secrets that the governments of each country were hiding. Now do you see it? The world you live in is filled with lies that the higher-ups are covering up. Innocent people die at the hands of those so-called heroes and villains, and none of them can do anything about it. But that will change, Malfoy declared. We will teach you everything you need to know. Izuku remained silent, absorbing the truth. All he had ever dreamed of was being a hero, saving lives, until reality hit him hard. Everything was built on lies. Even if you did become a hero, there is one thing people want to see: their hero fail. Despite everything you've done for them, eventually, they will hate you, Reaper stated. That truth resonated with Izuku. Every time a low-ranking hero or vigilante did something good, they were met with disdain. And about that offer, there is an additional benefit, Lobo said, drawing Izuku's attention. Not only will you claim vengeance on those who tormented you, but you will also have the opportunity to kill those who have shed innocent blood across different countries, making them fear you, Reaper explained. And lastly, once you finish your training, we will bring you back to the land of the living, but the catch is that you will be temporarily immortal, Malfoy added. Temporary? Izuku asked, intrigued. You see, you are still young and inexperienced in the world you live in, and we want you to enjoy your time here, Lobo clarified. Wait, so you can bring me back to life but make me temporarily immortal? Izuku sought confirmation. You will be immortal, yes, but we will give you something to make you mortal again, Lobo replied. But cheating death, wouldn't that be bad? Izuku questioned. Reaper, cheating death? Yes, but there is one thing you should know, boy, we are death. Thunder struck down the building, but it did not hit them. Izuku remained unfazed as he looked at the three figures offering him a second chance at life, death itself. Malfoy continued, every person will look up not as a hero but as something beyond a hero. The question is, do you accept to become like us? Reaper added, become someone that no one can stop. Become someone that they will fear. Become the symbol of death. As Izuku listened to their words, he looked up at them, his once green eyes now turning a bloody red, a sign that he was no longer Izuku Yagi. He was now the new symbol of death, the Grim Reaper. Izuku asked, when do I start? Back in the land of the living, everyone was attending Izuku's funeral. Family and friends wore black attire appropriate for the occasion. The Yagi family knelt in front of a shrine filled with flowers, surrounded by a heavy silence. Inko clutched the last picture of Izuku tightly, unable to let go despite her friend's attempts to comfort her. All Might struggled to look at his son's shrine, haunted by memories of his own mentor, Nana Shimura. He had spoken to the previous users of One for All, and they expressed their disappointment, deeming him and Izumi unworthy of the power. They could not leave his body as it would mean the end of One for All, and they urged All Might to find a better successor, as long as it wasn't Izumi or any of her friends. Izumi stood outside, unable to face her brother's shrine, burdened by guilt over his death. The dark gray clouds overhead mirrored her sorrow, a common sight in Japan when someone passes away. She felt isolated, unable to speak to her friends as their parents restricted contact, except for a few like the Todoroki and Bakugou twins. Memories of happier times with her brother flooded her mind, and she couldn't help but cry. Meanwhile, Aizawa and Nizu discussed their next steps. Aizawa, did you blacklist all of them? Nizu, not yet. I'm still grieving for Izuku. Aizawa, I know. Everyone here is mourning. It's heartbreaking that an innocent boy died at the hands of those who are supposed to be heroes. Unbeknownst to them, a mysterious figure listened from the shadows, making a call. Back inside, Inko remained in front of Izuku's coffin, holding a picture of him at 4 years old. It was the only photo she had, and it deepened her sorrow. She refused to leave, eat, or drink, wanting to stay close to her son. At the funeral reception, others were eating and drinking, some lost in conversation. The future heroes were somber, grappling with the reality of attending a funeral so soon. Toru, I never thought I would be attending a funeral. Kaminari, yeah, it's really depressing. Shoji, we are responsible for what happened to Izuku. Mina, we know that, but we never thought it would happen this early. Everyone looked down in shame, acknowledging their role in the tragedy. Shiro, hey, where are Katsumi and Shoka? Shoto, they went back to where Auntie Inko is. They're just as devastated. Kirishima, where are Bakugou and Izumi? Jiro, I heard Bakugou wanted to talk to Izumi, but I don't know what about. Shoto realized, Bakugou is going to confess to Izumi on the day of his brother's death, which was our responsibility. Behind the building, Izumi stood with Bakugou, confused about why he had called her. She should have been with her mother, but her father had said he was going to the restroom and hadn't returned. Bakugou took a deep breath and asked, "Will you go out with me?" Izumi was shocked to hear what Bakugou just said. She couldn't believe he was confessing his feelings on the day of his brother's funeral. While she felt a flicker of happiness at his confession, it was overshadowed by her anger at the timing. "Are you serious?" Izumi demanded. "Yes, Bakugou started. "You're confessing to me at my brother's funeral? Are you kidding me?" "So what?" he replied defiantly. "So what? So what? My brother is dead. He's lying there in the coffin where he shouldn't even be. He was supposed to be here with us, living, and you didn't even care, not even the slightest. Hey, it's his fault for dreaming something ridiculous, being a hero without a quirk. At least he was dreaming. All of us with quirks get to be heroes in reality. He needs to face reality. There's no way a quirkless freak like him can be a hero. In fact, all quirkless and villainous quirks should just disappear." Izumi's hand flew across Bakugou's face, leaving him stunned. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she cried, "You're a disgusting human being. I wished you were the one who was dead instead of my brother." She turned to leave but paused to deliver one last blow. "As for your confession, go away and don't ever talk to me again." Time passed, and as everyone left the funeral, Inko hesitated to go. She had no choice but to follow. The heroes who were available were called by the HPSC for a meeting at noon the next day. Nizu had a bad feeling about what was to come. Time skip, noon at HPSC HQ. Aizawa slammed his fist on the table, making everyone look at him. "What? Why?" "Because they are the future generation, and if the public finds out about this, people will lose faith in heroes," a voice responded. "Madam President, you can't be serious about putting them into my school after what they've done." Nizu protested. "They will be there, Nizu. I'm sorry, but we all voted to not waste potential heroes," Madam President insisted. Aizawa stood up, preparing to leave. "Now I remember why I left you," he said before exiting the room. Silence fell until Nizu broke it. "Very well, it is your order, but what happens inside the school is my business. I will punish them if they act unheroic." "Do you think we would listen?" One hero began, but was interrupted. "That's fair," another hero acknowledged. "Madam President, you can't be serious," someone exclaimed. "I am serious. We need more heroes because there are more villains appearing than heroes in recent years. Nizu, feel free to handle them as you see fit." Nizu nodded and left the room, followed by Present Mike and Midnight. The rest stayed behind. "Why do they care about that quirkless boy anyway?" one hero asked. "Yeah, he's just a waste of space," another added. "Right, one time a parent asked me to look for their quirkless son, but I refused. It was just a waste of time," a third hero chimed in. Some heroes began to agree, while the top heroes looked disappointed. "Maybe we should reward the person for getting rid of the quirkless after all," one suggested, but suddenly he began to choke, turning blue. Panic spread as others who had agreed with him started to struggle as well. They all looked to the source of the glowing green light and saw Inko, her hands raised toward the corrupted heroes. "That quirkless person you're bad-mouthing as my son," she screamed, and everything in the room began to float. The windows cracked as chaos erupted, but Madam President remained calm. "Inko, that is enough. You've given them a warning. Release them and control your quirk," she ordered. After a moment, Inko complied, and the room returned to normal. She glared at the corrupted heroes before leaving. One by one, the top heroes exited, giving disappointed looks to those who had spoken poorly. As Enji was about to leave, he warned, Never badmouth the quirkless, especially in front of Telek. If you do, I promise you she won't hesitate to take action, and we won't stop her. He opened the door but paused to add, no one can stop her if she goes on a rampage, not even All Might. MDM president recalled a day when Telek had gone on a rampage after a villain kidnapped her children. The villain learned a harsh lesson that day. If there's nothing else to discuss, you're all dismissed, she announced, standing to go to her office. Once inside, she wiped her forehead with a handkerchief and looked at a family picture on her desk. In it she sat on a stool with her husband and son, Shoto, standing beside her. Leaning back, recalled all the precious memories before she became MDM president of the HPSC. Back to the void where the three deaths were watching Izuku's world, they all thought the same thing. Time to show the world who you are, said the first Reaper. Show them what fear really is, added Lobo. Show them what happens when they mess with death, Malthul concluded. As they looked behind, they saw nothing but darkness until the three of them called out, Izuku, it's time. Izuku appeared from the shadows, holding the dual sickles that Malthul had given him. 5 years had passed, and time flew by so fast that it felt like yesterday. Today was Izuku's death anniversary. Those who had bullied him and his past family wanted to visit his grave, but they were forbidden to do so. Their anger at being unable to visit was silenced by the reminder of their actions against Izuku. Over the past year, the guilt among his so-called friends was overwhelming. But the ones most affected were his family, especially Inko. Her status had dropped, but she no longer cared about that. All she cared about was her children. She had already lost one due to her negligence. Izuku had died because he was quirkless, and she felt it was all her fault. She promised herself she would protect her children, even if it cost her life, but now she felt she had failed in her most important duty. Inko had retired early from her hero work, spending her days cleaning Izuku's room and decorating it as if someone still lived there. Her family tried to reason with her about the room, but she wouldn't listen. She was broken for a month until Nizu decided to intervene. He didn't want to lose such a talented hero, so he hired her as a teacher. She initially refused but eventually accepted. Most of her family and friends were happy for her, but some, like Aizawa, opposed the idea of her teaching at UA. However, since Nizu had hired her, he had to respect that decision. As for Izumi's friends, they faced severe consequences. They hadn't seen each other in years, with most being transferred to different schools far away. Their parents announced that they were blacklisted from all hero schools except UA. Initially excited, their spirits sank when they learned that Nizu had been forced to allow them entry. They were given a chance to pursue their dreams because the Hero Commission needed more heroes, but it was clear they had no choice but to attend UA if they wanted to achieve their goals. One explosive blonde, hearing that UA was the only option, began to boast about being the best and strongest. His parents were disappointed in him for his past actions toward Izuku. They had always welcomed Izuku into their home, treating him like their own son, but that changed when they realized their son had tormented him. They had wondered why Izuku hadn't visited in a while, only to discover the truth. Katsumi, on the other hand, had stopped talking to anyone since Izuku's death. She changed completely, isolating herself from her friends and family. Her friends remained at the same school but were now kept at a distance. After school, she would go straight home, locking herself in her room until dinner. When asked questions, she would respond with, "Same as always," indicating the distance that had grown between them. The school was aware of what had happened but kept quiet to protect its reputation. To Katsumi, it didn't matter. She felt she didn't deserve to have her reputation protected after bullying someone so close to her heart. Now, standing in front of Izuku's grave, Katsumi held a bouquet of flowers. She knelt down and placed them on his tombstone, her heart heavy with guilt. Rest in peace, Izuku Shimura. The good son, brother, nephew, and friend. July 15th, April 15th. She and the others couldn't visit because of the overwhelming guilt of their actions, but she had finally found the courage to confront it. Katsumi, hi Iken, it's been a while. I'm sorry I couldn't visit. I was such a coward. Whenever I tried to help others being bullied at school, they looked at me in fear, and their expressions always reminded me of you, the way you looked at us in fear. As she wiped the leaves off the stone, tears began to pour down her cheeks. Katsumi, I miss you. There isn't a single day that I don't. Whenever I pass the playground where we used to play, it always reminds me of you. You always cheered me up when I was sad, but now you're not here anymore. It's our fault that you're here in the cemetery. You should be with us, living and supporting us in becoming heroes. If only we had believed in you becoming the first quirkless hero, none of this would have happened. She pressed her forehead against the tombstone, releasing the pain she had held for 5 long years. Katsumi. Katsumi turned around and saw Izumi and Shoka, both holding flowers. She wiped her tears and looked at them. Katsumi, visiting? Izumi, yeah, even though we're not allowed here, we still come from time to time. The 2 girls approached and placed the flowers on the tombstone. The 3 of them said their prayers for Izuku, unaware that someone was watching them, the cemetery attendant, who leaned on his shovel while grabbing his phone to call Nizu. See, there are 3 girls here visiting your nephew, sir. Should I make them leave? At you, Nizu was at his laptop doing paperwork when he received the call. He checked the camera feed from the attendant and saw the 3 girls. After a moment of thought, he replied, Nizu, let them be for now. See, if you say so, sir. As they hung up, Nizu focused on the international news about recent events. News reporter, here I am live in Mexico City, at what was thought to be an abandoned warehouse. Multiple bodies have been found inside, where the cartel was hiding drags, women and children. Locals called the police after hearing gunshots and screams. When they arrived, all that was left were the corpses of the cartel members and crates full of drags worth over $500 million. The kidnapped individuals couldn't see what happened or who was responsible for the massacre. One of the suspects is the number 10 hero in Mexico, El Toro. CCTV footage shows him speaking with one of the cartel leaders before being shot point-blank. The footage displayed El Toro and the cartel leader shaking hands when suddenly, chaos erupted. The mysterious figure intervened, swiftly taking down the cartel members with precise shots. As the remaining members attempted to fight back, the figure drew dual sickles, moving with incredible speed. One by one, the cartel members fell, their heads rolling to the ground. The leader and El Toro trembled in fear as the figure stood before them. In a moment of silence, the figure struck, and the scene faded to darkness as the CCTV footage cut out. News reporter, words can't describe what we just witnessed. This person is responsible for this massacre. I'm sorry, I can't continue. As the news segment ended, Nizu leaned back in his chair, looking out the window, contemplating the figure responsible for the massacre of one of the most dangerous gangs in Mexico. Nizu, it seems this mysterious figure is a new threat to Mexico. As long as he doesn't come here, we are safe. But his quirk is so mysterious, and judging by his weapons, I suspect his quirk is non-combat. He took a sip from his teacup, hoping they wouldn't have to face such a person in the future. Somewhere in Mexico, not far from the crime scene reported in the news, a man stood a few blocks away, watching as paramedics placed bodies into bags. He slowly walked away, heading toward a dark alleyway. Pulling out a notebook, he flipped through the pages until he found the picture of the West cartel leader, marking it with a red X. 1 down, 4 to go, he muttered to himself. Just as he was about to leave, a group of thugs surrounded him, blocking his escape. One thug stepped forward. Give us your money, and we'll let you live, or we'll take everything you have, the thug leader threatened. Unfazed, the man looked around before meeting the thug leader's gaze. Before you do anything else, I just want to ask you something. The thug leader leaned closer, intrigued. And what is that? Do you fear death? He asked, his voice calm. As the camera zoomed out of the alley, the sounds of screams and gunshots erupted, causing panic among the people nearby. They began calling the police, unaware that the damage had already been done. The mysterious figure was on the hunt and would not stop until all his targets were eliminated. After the incident in Mexico, more bodies were discovered on a nearby street. The figure made his way toward the border of Mexico and the USA in Texas. Many cartel members had fled to the US, but they were all marked as his targets. The 4 leaders had tried to escape the country by any means necessary, bribing guards, contacting connections in the US, anything illegal to buy themselves a few days of freedom. Little did they know, they were being followed. He would not kill them immediately, instead he would let them believe that the hunter had stopped, that his grudge was only against the one he had already killed. His true objective was to make them pay for their crimes. Drug trafficking, human trafficking, arms trading, and all the other illegal activities that wealthy individuals engage in. Now, he found himself in a 5-star hotel in Houston, where all the cartel leaders were staying on the top floor. He was 5 floors below them, waiting for the final leader. As he waited, he poured himself a glass of whiskey and placed it on the desk. He removed his hooded cloak, gloves, and mask, revealing scars across his body and face. His signature green hair and diamond-shaped freckles were still visible, and he had become more muscular since his past life. Looking at himself in the mirror, he recalled who he had been before. The memories fueled his longing for revenge, but he knew he wanted them to suffer for what they had done to him. It feels like yesterday when I was dead, and now I've been revived by not just one, but 3 Grim Reapers, he reflected. They are furious about how corrupted this society has become and have tasked me with changing it. If I can't change it, then I will unleash chaos. A war between those who believe quirkless people should die and those who will fight back until they are all gone. He took a sip of his whiskey, looking out the window. But now I am different. It's time to show this world what fear really is. Just then, he noticed the 4th cartel leader arriving at the hotel. It's time, he said, preparing himself for what was to come. The last cartel leader entered the hotel and headed for the elevator. Staff members hesitated to stop him, but their manager reminded them of who he was. As he reached the top floor, he found only one door in the hallway. The leader and his goons entered to find the other 3 cartel leaders discussing the recent death of their center leader at the hands of an unknown assailant. "You sure took your time getting here," the North cartel leader remarked. "And if you must know, my area is far south in Mexico, so of course I would be late," the South cartel leader replied. "You have a lot of resources in the South. Why can't you use your connections like we did?" the East cartel leader asked. "The heroes have been guarding the coast, and the main roads are blocked. Ever since the center leader was killed and El Toro was exposed, the federal police and non-corrupted heroes have been searching my area for me. I had no choice but to abandon my base and find somewhere else to conduct our business." West cartel leader, WSL, DMN that person. "I can't wait for him to show up so I can put a bullet straight into his skull," he shouted, making the other leaders agree as they discussed their next move. Suddenly, the lights went out. WSL, what the hell? North cartel leader, Enzel, calm down, it's just a power outage. North cartel guard, sir, that's not all. The entire city of Houston has also lost power. West cartel guard, I'm getting a report from the news. There was an accident at the distribution substation nearby. A villain who feeds on electricity was involved, but the heroes managed to stop him before it got worse. The power won't come back for about an hour. South cartel leader, DCL, great, just great. East cartel leader, ECL, calm down. There should be a backup generator in this hotel, and it should be starting up right. Just then, the power came back on. ECL, see? Just be patient. WSL, why I? Suddenly, alarm blared, causing confusion. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a drill. There has been an incident on the 10th floor. Please do not panic and head to the fire exit. All power has been shut off, so do not use the elevators for safety. As the cartel guards checked the area, the leaders prepared to exit. North cartel guard, NC guard, everything is clear in the hallway, sir. East cartel guard, EC guard, same in the fire exit here. NCL, all right, let's get out of here. The others nodded, ready to leave, when suddenly, the guards' radios crackled to life. Random cartel guards, hey, Queen Iris too? Another guard responded, oi, que diablos Iris? Then, a loud bang echoed through the radio, and they exchanged worried glances before heading back inside. The guards quickly barricaded the door, leaving a few outside to watch for any intruders. NC guard number 1. Tenemos una alerta de intruso. Repito, Tenemos alertador intruso. SC Guard Number 1. Cierre todas las puertas y reglas de ventilación. EC Guard Number 1. Ustedes cinco revisen el balcón. Asegúrense de que no haya nadie afuera. The guards followed their captain's orders, while the cartel leaders prepared their quirks for what was about to happen. Outside, they heard screams and gunshots. The leaders readied their weapons, knowing they had to be prepared. The North Cartel leader's quirk, Havoc, allowed him to generate powerful plasma blasts. The South Cartel leader could create any type of weapon, while the East Cartel leader could manipulate metal for defense and offense. The West Cartel leader, with his quick draw ability, could shoot before anyone even had a chance to react. As they listened to the chaos outside, the door suddenly banged. All of the cartel leaders shouted, "Abran fuego!" The soldiers followed orders, emptying their magazines before reloading and aiming at the door. One brave guard approached and opened it, revealing a scene of chaos with dead bodies and pools of blood. He signaled that it was clear, and they cautiously followed him inside. NC Guard Number 2, do you guys smell that? SC Guard Number 2, smells like. EC Guard Number 2, gas. Suddenly, they saw 3 gas tanks rolling toward them from the room. A figure in a white mask stood there, guns aimed at the tanks. Ensil, run! They dashed for the exit stairway, but it was too late. Bang! The figure shot the gas tank. Boom! The explosion caught the cartel guards, some burned or blown out of the window. The only one left was the North leader, who had saved himself by pushing the others aside as he ran down the stairs. He finally made it to the lobby. Ensil, there's a saying, the strong survive, and the weak perish. Izuku, and the cowards are nothing but weak. The North leader turned to see the mysterious figure looking at him. Ensil, you, what have we done to you? Izuku, to me, nothing. But to the rest of Mexico, everything. You and the other leaders have been involved in human trafficking for far too long, and no heroes have been able to stop you, because some of the hero commissioners have been helping you cartels. The North leader stared in shock, realizing how this person had uncovered their biggest secret. He noticed Izuku reaching into his pocket. Izuku, and you know what interests me? This small dart. It caught my eye because of what's inside it, quirk boost. The North leader felt helpless. This person had discovered a secret known only to high-status villains and corrupt officials. Izuku, you're going to tell me where you got this and the location of the main factory and selling place you know. Enil, and if I don't? Izuku, you will end up like the other cartels, dead. And see, even if I tell you, I will die anyway, so, forget you. He fires multiple plasma blasts, but Izuku dodges them easily and walks towards him. Izuku, you know this could be avoided if you could only tell me where the other supply of the quirk boost is, but since you won't tell me. He then grabs both of NCL's hands, making him look at Izuku in fear as he raises both of his hands. Izuku, then I guess you're better off dead. NCL, go to hell. As red energy starts to surround him and gather in the center, he blasts Izuku, sending him back farther away. NCL kneels down, breathing, realizing that gathering all that energy takes a toll on his stamina. He is surprised that it only knocked Izuku away. NCL, finally. I doubt you can survive that. He breathes heavily as he takes something from his pocket, revealing a picture of multiple people. He focuses on the center of the picture, where he is side-hugging a woman with 2 children, a boy and a girl, standing in front of them. NC, don't worry my babies, I'm coming home. He stands up and turns towards the nearest exit, taking only 2 steps before he sees his family. NC, almost there, almost, hey. He looks down to see something impale him, lifting him off the ground. He looks back in disbelief. Izuku, what you just did was impressive, but also a mistake. He tosses NCL back to the center. Holding his wound to apply pressure, NCL knows it's no use as he lays down flat and looks towards Izuku, who is staring at the family picture. Izuku, such a wonderful family you have. NCL, please don't hurt them. They're innocent. They don't know anything about what I did. Izuku simply looks at him. NCL, por favor, deja vivir a mi familia. Izuku looks back at the family photo before placing it on his chest. Izuku, you tell me what I need to know, and your family is spared. The last cartel leader nods and takes out a flash drive. Enciel, todo está bien. Entonces mi familia está salvo? Izuku looks at the flash drive and then at Enciel before nodding. Enciel releases a heavy breath, knowing his family is safe. He looks back at Izuku. Adil, just who are you? Izuku stands up, takes out his dual sickle, and crosses his arms. Enciel can hardly believe his eyes. Enciel, why you are? Izuku, I am. As Enciel holds the photo to his chest and closes his eyes, releasing his last breath, Izuku places his hand on Enciel's chest and extracts something. It's an orb, but not just any orb, it's a soul. He judges whether it will be sent to hell, heaven, or kept until he makes a decision. For now, he will decide later if the information given to him is sufficient. He places the soul orb in his black leather pouch, where he keeps all the souls that haven't been sent to heaven or hell yet. Izuku, if only you weren't blinded by those fools, you would be sent to heaven without a second thought. But because of your actions, you will be judged soon. Once I find out who is responsible for this quirk drag boost, and if I discover that the international government is part of this project, they will wish they had never been born. Izuku stands up and uses his shadow step to leave the area. Izuku, all of the cartel leaders in Mexico are dead, now the Hero Commission in Mexico is next. He stands on the rooftop, looking down at the fire trucks, ambulances, police, SWAT, and heroes in the area before leaving, knowing this will be headline news. Back in Japan, everyone is heading to UA on their first day. It was supposed to be an exciting day as they entered the biggest school in Japan, but it felt quite the opposite. They didn't get into UA just because they passed the exams, but also due to the support of the HPSC, which Nisa had no choice but to accept. At the Yagi family home, Izumi prepares everything she needs for school. As she packs, she looks in the mirror. Although she is happy to have gotten into UA, she still feels guilty about the reason she is there. She glances at a photo stuck to the top left of the mirror. It's a picture of her and her brother, Izuku. She touches the photo gently. Izumi, I'm sorry Izuku. I wish you could see me now, but this is not what I wanted. She looks down at her uniform, thinking about what might have happened if Izuku were alive and how she would have supported him in becoming a hero. A smile briefly crosses her face before fading as she remembers who is responsible for his death. Because of that mistake, her hero career and her friends' careers are on thin ice, especially with her uncles at UA, one being the principal and the other the strictest teacher of all. She takes one last look at herself before grabbing her things and heading downstairs. When she arrives, she sees her mother watching TV, with no sign of her father. Izumi, Mom, where's Dad? Inko, oh, Izumi, your father left early. Izumi, oh okay. Inko, there's food already on the table, so eat your breakfast and head to school first. I will catch up later. Izumi nodded but then noticed what her mother was holding. It was an All Might onesie, one she and her brother always wore as kids. She knew hers was still in her room, so the only answer to whose onesie her mother was holding was her brother's, which made her sad as she headed to the kitchen to eat. After breakfast, she bid her mother goodbye and went outside, where she found her friends Katsumi and Shoko waiting. She smiled at them, and they returned the gesture as the three headed toward the school. When they arrived, they took a good look at the school. Izumi, well, here we are. Shoka, yes. Katsumi, we made it. The three said as they took one last look before heading inside to find their classroom. Once they located it, they took a deep breath before entering. Inside, they saw all their old friends and classmates. Shoka and Katsumi spotted their brothers already in their seats, and they all greeted each other until the door opened, revealing none other than Shota Aizawa. Just by the look on his face, it was clear he didn't want to be there. Aizawa, if you are here to catch up on your friendships, then you might as well leave. His words made them quiet as the three newcomers took their seats. Aizawa, first off, I despise you all and there is no reason to explain why. His statement made everyone look down, knowing the answer. Katsuki gritted his teeth at Aizawa's words. Aizawa, as a matter of fact, none of you deserve to be here in this school. If I were the principal, all of you would be blacklisted, and you could find other careers besides being a hero. But here you are now because of Nizu's orders, and I can't do anything about it. Now, here, put this on and meet me outside. He pulled out their gym uniforms. Uraraka, sir, what about the orientation? Aizawa glared at her, making her nervous. Aizawa, does it look like I care about some boring orientation? None of them answered, which was enough for him. He left the room, and the rest went to the locker room to change. Outside, Aizawa was waiting, holding a stopwatch. When everyone finally arrived, he clicked the stop button. Aizawa, it took you all 5 minutes to get here. If this were a real situation, the villains would have already injured or killed a civilian because you were late. He put his stopwatch in his pocket. Aizawa, if you're here to be a hero, then you should know by now that heroes are never late. If you see other heroes out there running around, it's because they are lazy and only after fame and fortune. I'm here to make sure none of you are like those useless heroes out there. Now let the test begin. All of them felt a shiver run down their spines as he activated his quirk. They proceeded with the test, which included running to see who was the fastest, grip tests, long jumps, running laps until exhaustion, side jumps, push-ups, sit-ups, and finally, ball throws. Aizawa then showed them their results. Aizawa, not bad, but not good either. All of you still have a long way to go, and we are going to work on that, so be prepared. Welcome to UA. Now get changed and head back. As he walked away, the class finally collapsed, except for Shoto, Izumi, Katsumi, and Katsuki. Denki, men, that was hard. Mina, yeah, and here I thought we were done with this kind of thing. Uraraka, I thought we were getting expelled. Most of them agreed with her. They looked back at Aizawa, who was walking away from them, and saw All Might and Inko looking at him, or more specifically, at his students. Aizawa, is there something I can help you with, All Might and Inko? All Might, Aizawa, cold and strict as ever. But did you have to be so strict with the new generation? Aizawa, I'm just making them realize why I'm doing this and stating the fact that many heroes are lazy and only seek fame and fortune. All Might, surely not. Aizawa, not all of them? Is that what you're going to say? Then tell me this, All Might. Whenever you save civilians, did you notice that you are often the only one arriving? All Might, I did not notice. Aizawa, then you're an idiot who is nothing but muscles. He said before walking away, leaving a warning behind. Aizawa, don't think that I don't know what you did, Yagi. He glared, making All Might's spine shiver as he continued to walk away, not even acknowledging Inko, which made her sad. Before this, he was always there for her whenever she needed help if her husband was not around, but now everything had changed because of one mistake. Somewhere across in New York at the Empire State Building, a person with his hood pulled back sat on top of the eagle's head, his green hair waving in the wind. He looked down at the appealing lights of New York, seeing heroes flying, swinging, running, and jumping, patrolling the area, unaware that someone was watching them from above, and he was not their guardian angel. Izuku thought to himself, there are times when we must take it easy and not rush things. If I did rush it, where's the fun? He chuckled softly, feeling someone behind him but not bothering to look. Do you know it's dangerous for a civilian to be here? A voice said. Izuku turned to see a tall, muscular woman, around 6 feet 3 inches to 6 feet 5 inches, wearing a high-collared, skin-tight bodysuit adorned with stripes and stars, reminiscent of the U.S. flag. And to think I would meet the #1 hero of the U.S., Star and Stripes, he replied. Mind telling me what you're doing? She asked. Do you need any more reason to just enjoy the view up here? Izuku said, glancing back at the city. You know I could arrest you for trespassing, right? She countered. You won't, he replied confidently. And pray tell, why wouldn't I? She challenged. Because you're enjoying the view as well, and what I'm doing is the job of a police officer or guard, not a hero. It's their fault for not noticing me here unless they're scared of heights, he said, noticing her stifled laughter. Oh, you're right about that. This job is for the guards, not heroes. And I am enjoying the view too lazy to do anything since I just finished my work here in New York and need to head back to Washington. Izuku remained silent, taking in the wind. He noticed Star and Stripes was walking in the air, likely using her quirk. Huh, based on your look, you're not from around here, she observed. You could say that, he replied. So, what's your reason for being in New York? She asked. Just looking for someone, he answered. Oh, is it a girl? She teased. No, professionally, he clarified. Bounty hunter? She guessed. Close enough, he said. Aren't you a little young for that? She questioned. This is my life after what happened in my past. It's something they will have to face one day, he replied. Bad past, huh? A lot of people have that kind of history, she noted. Not mine, he said before a huge explosion echoed from the park. It looks like duty calls, he said. Yeah, well, be sure not to get caught if you're going down, will ya? She said as she took to the sky, flying toward the park. Like they will capture me, he muttered as he stood up, donned his mask and hood, and free fell from the building. Just before hitting the ground, he summoned his wings and flew quickly toward Madison Square Garden, where he found his target, a few corrupt government members involved in illegal activities. With most heroes heading to the park, he saw a chance to put an end to them before they could hurt anyone else. He decided to confront them directly. Inside the luxury suites of Madison Square Garden, several casually dressed individuals discussed their illegal business dealings. Finally, with those diamond cartels gone, we can focus on other matters, one said. Yeah, with them out of the way, other countries have no choice but to make deals with us, another added. Finally, after so long. But the question remains, who killed them? A third asked. Bah, who cares? It did the job for us, a fourth replied. Whoever it is, we should be grateful, a fifth agreed. They raised their glasses in a toast when suddenly, a disheveled member of their group stumbled in. You're finally here. Where have you been? What happened to you? One of them asked. He fell to the ground, prompting the others to rush over. What happened? One asked. Get a doctor here, another shouted. Hey, what's that? One pointed to a crumpled paper in the fallen man's hand. A guard picked it up, shaking as he read it. What does it say? Someone asked. The guard remained silent, and another snatched the paper, reading it aloud in shock. Run! Confusion spread as the lights suddenly went out, plunging the suite into darkness. The guards drew their flashlights, wondering why the backup generators weren't working. Sir, the backup generator will be up in about 5 minutes, one guard reported. Suddenly, someone closed the curtains. Hey, who told you to close the curtains? One of the corrupt officials demanded. No answer came. Hey, he's asking you a question, another guard shouted. Then, a thud echoed and one of the officials felt. Something hit his leg. In the pitch black, they couldn't see until the lights flickered back on. What they saw was horrifying. 5 headless bodies lay on the ground, their heads at their feet. I just love the smell of fear. It's intoxicating, a voice called out. They turned to see a figure in a black robe and a white jack-o'-lantern mask, spinning a sickle with one hand while leaning against the bar table. Who are you? The first corrupt official shouted, as all the guards pointed their guns and activated their quirks. The figure did not answer. CG number 4 shouted, Hey, he asked. Bang. The only sound that followed was the thud of CG#4's body hitting the ground, a hole in his chest. The others looked around in confusion, only to find no one in sight. Suddenly, they heard a click and all eyes turned to the center of the room where CG stood, guns drawn, shooting in a whirlwind of chaos, taking down his attackers at point-blank range. Only one survived, thanks to his quirk, invulnerable, which made his body bulletproof. Once the figure finished, he turned to the last remaining CG. Oh, you survived my death blossom. I'm impressed. The last CG looked around in fear, hoping to see any of his men alive, but all he found was a pile of bodies. The room, once thought to be soundproof and heavily guarded, had turned into a grave mistake for them. Since you survived, I'll give you a head start, he said, tossing a sickle between the man's legs, prompting him to flee toward the door. Go ahead, run for it. Makes it more fun for me. The last CG dashed out, hitting an emergency button that set off alarms throughout the arena. As people evacuated, he blended in with the crowd and waved down a cab, instructing the driver to take him far away. The driver glanced at him oddly but complied. As they drove, he looked back at the arena and saw the figures staring directly at him, sending a chill down his spine. He urged the driver to go faster. After a minute, they reached the other side of the park, where a gang rivalry was brewing. He paid the driver and headed into the park to cool off, unaware that the area had been evacuated. Sitting on a bench, he pulled out his phone to call one of the few remaining CGs like him, aware that others were scattered across different states, all hungry for power and treating people like pawns. Just as he was about to dial, a whistle sent shivers down his spine. He turned to see a man standing under a streetlight, lifting his head to reveal a white jack-o'-lantern mask. Panic surged through him, and he dropped his phone, running until he found refuge under a bridge. Peeking out cautiously, he saw no one and sighed in relief. But before he could turn around, the figure was already there. He felt a sharp pain in his abdomen as the figure stabbed him. Shock filled his eyes as the figure slowly pulled out the sickle, allowing him to stumble back and collapse. Clutching his wound, he gasped, "Why are you doing this?" "Because people like you have done too many horrible things, splitting this country, bribing police officers and judges, covering up your crimes. People like you don't deserve to live." "You think this is over?" the last CG retorted weakly. "No, I don't. That's why I will hunt people like you down until there is no one left." With that, the figure pulled out a gun, aimed at the CG's head, and fired. The shot echoed through the park, drawing the attention of nearby heroes and police, who rushed to investigate. When they arrived, they found the body of the corrupt government worker, but no clues. One hero noticed something written on the wall in the dead man's blood. "You can all run, but you cannot hide from me." After eliminating the corrupt governors in the New York park, Izuku moved on to the ports across the US, taking down criminals and villains without hesitation. Heroes tried to stop him, but many ended up hurt or terrified. A manhunt for Izuku ensued, with each state deploying their top 10 heroes to confront him. Those who weren't among the top 10 were advised to flee. Izuku stood atop a luxurious hotel, a place frequented by the wealthy and powerful, including corrupt politicians and heroes. He knew this was a hub for crime bosses and needed to interrogate one individual about new drags that temporarily enhanced quirks. Reading the file on his target, Roland Clegg, he noted the man's numerous divorces, neglect of his children, and his descent into illegal activities, including human trafficking. "Someone like this should be dead," Izuku muttered, "but I need information." Suddenly, he heard a voice behind him. "I'm afraid you won't be getting it." He turned to see 10 heroes, all wearing armbands with a dollar logo. "You're the one they call Death," Jetstream, the fastest hero in LA, said. Izuku replied, "The no. One hero in LA and number 20 in the US, Quirk Superspeed." Jetstream, "You're well informed." Izuku, "I've been keeping tabs." "Now, what's a hero like you doing with the corrupted government?" Random hero number 1, "Since you already know, there's no point in hiding it anyway." Random hero number 2, "Yeah, you want to know? Because it's easy to gain money from them, and you can gain better status with them. Plus, we can enjoy our free time." Izuku, "More reason why I'm stopping them all." Jetstream, "Which is why we're stopping you here and now." The heroes prepared themselves, thinking this would be easy since they outnumbered him. But they made a fatal mistake as Izuku took out Malthul's dual sickles. Izuku chuckles, "This is gonna be fun." At the hotel, a party was in full swing. The center of the hotel was bustling with about 1,000 VIPs, 500 security personnel, and 100 heroes patrolling the area. The reason for the party was Roland Clegg's announcement of a new shipping port in London. It took a lot of bribing to get it done, but he managed to do it, despite the jobs lost at the old port. Suddenly, the lights went out, and a single spotlight shone down on the stage as the crowd clapped. The mayor walked toward the podium, waving at the audience. "Mayor, thank you all for being here. I know you all have things to do, but this announcement is very important and private. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Ronald Clegg." Everyone began clapping, including the heroes on guard, as Ronald took the podium. "Ronald, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for attending this evening." As the mayor said, This is a private matter that no one outside needs to know about. Today marks the opening of a new port in London, but that isn't all. It will be for the entire country. With this, we can easily ship our products legally and illegally, as long as you pay the right price. Together, we can move toward a brighter future with no restrictions. The crowd applauded, many wishing that shipping companies could operate this way. Ronald raised a glass of champagne. Ronald, to the future. The crowd, to the future. As they drank, someone shouted from the entrance. To your downfall. Everyone turned to see a figure at the entrance, initially obscured by a hood. When he raised his head, fear spread among the heroes, police, and politicians in the hotel. Izuku breathes in. As he spoke the last part, lightning flashed outside, amplifying their fear. The heroes rushed at him as Izuku threw a sickle toward one of them, who dodged. Random hero, missed? Izuku, did I? Confusion spread when they heard static and saw the sickle hit the electric box. Alert! 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 The alarm blared throughout the building, and everything went. Mayor, what the hell is going on? Hotel manager, he hit the electric box. But don't worry, backup generators should kick in soon. Then the power came back. Random dirty cop number 1, he's gone. RDC number 2, where did he go? RDC captain, spread out, he can't be far. They all spread out, and the heroes did the same. Hotel manager, what does he want? Mayor, I don't know, but we've got to get out of here. Random hero number 2, we can't. Mayor, and why not? RH number 3, because the place has been rigged with explosives. Hotel manager, what do you mean rigged? RDC captain, the whole building is rigged with explosives. If we try to escape, it will trigger them. My men will try to defuse them, but it will take time. RDC number 4, sir, I've checked all the people, mostly everyone is here except one. RDC captain, who? RDC number 4, Ronald Clegg. On the roof of the building, around 75 stories up, Izuku held Ronald by the neck as he struggled to break free. Izuku, I'm not gonna ask again. Where did you get the drag boost? Ronald, I'd rather die than tell you anything. Izuku, that can be arranged. As he walked toward the edge, Ronald panicked and gripped Izuku's arm tightly. Ronald, wait, no. He started scratching Izuku's arm, but it didn't faze him due to his arm braces. Ronald, how about we make a deal? How much do you want? 1 to 10 million? I can give you anything. Izuku remained silent, causing Ronald to think he had a chance. Suddenly, smoke began to form behind Izuku, and he realized it was wings. Before Ronald could react, Izuku flew higher, about 1,000 feet, close to the height of the Empire State Building. Izuku, last chance. Don't think you can bribe me again, or I might just let you go. He loosened his grip slightly, making Ronald even more terrified. Ronald, okay. I'll tell you. Japan. I got it from Japan. They're the ones supplying the US. Izuku, what do you mean, us? Ronald, you think I'm the only one who has information about the quirk boost you're talking about? Izuku, give me names. Ronald, I don't know any of them, but I have the records on my USB in my pocket. Izuku reaches into his pocket and grabs the USB, inspecting it before putting it back. Ronald, now that you have what you need, can you let me go? Izuku, yes. Ronald was relieved to be free, but... Izuku, but I never said where to let you go. Before Ronald could react, Izuku released his grip, and Ronald fell into the abyss. Izuku, out of all the countries, it had to be Japan. He looked at the hotel where people were still trapped. Izuku, leave none alive. He pressed the red button in his pocket, and the building exploded. Izuku, well, it looks like I have another hunt to do. Once I'm done, it's time to go back to where I first started to become death. He glanced at the USB as his hunt for new prey began. While chaos unfolded in another country, we returned to Japan, where the future heroes were on thin ice since arriving at UA. The only ones who knew what had happened were the staff, including the new members, All Might, and Inko, who were now retired from hero duty. Inko's rank had dropped, leading people to wonder why she announced her early retirement due to a loss of motivation. Now, She worked as a teacher at UA, specializing in geography and history. She mostly interacted with Cementos and Midnight, while the rest of the staff kept their distance, treating her as a colleague nonetheless. Class 1A had become distant after his death. They still spoke, but not as freely as before, only engaging in conversation during group work. The classroom was silent, the ticking clock amplifying their discomfort. When the door opened, Aizawa entered. Aizawa, gather everyone on the bus and wear your hero suits. You have 15 minutes, so hurry up. That was all he needed to say before everyone got up and headed to the locker room to change. Once they were ready, they saw Aizawa and Izumi's mother, Inko, waiting for them. Aizawa checked the time. Aizawa, 5 minutes to spare, not bad, but it needs improvement. Today, we will be going to the UA rescue facility called USJ. For those who think it's Universal Studios Japan, it's not. It's the unforeseen simulation joint. Some students looked offended, but Aizawa continued. Aizawa, enough, let's go. Izumi, okay, everyone, you can sit anywhere you like, just don't be too loud. Ida, shouldn't we sit alphabetically? Izumi, it's not that kind of bus, Ida. Ida, how do you know? A few moments later, everyone was on the bus, which was no ordinary transport vehicle. Ida, never mind. They settled in and started talking about random topics since it would be a long ride. Izumi sat next to her mom, with Katsumi on the other side. The three were silent until Izumi spoke. Izumi, hey mom, how are you holding up? Inko, just fine, sweetie. Izumi, did you make it to the doctor's appointment? Inko, it got cancelled due to personal reasons. Katsumi, are you sure you're alright, auntie? Inko, I'm fine, Kat, really? She assured them, but in reality, she was struggling. Ever since her son's death, she had experienced mental breakdowns whenever she saw someone with similar bushy hair. Midnight had helped her through some tough moments and brought her to Nizu, who understood the situation and arranged therapy. Nizu assigned her to a renowned therapist in Japan, which helped, but she needed to attend sessions 3 times a week to stabilize her. The mere mention of her son's name could easily trigger her. They finally arrived and got out, spotting Space Hero 13 with Vlad from the neighboring classroom. Vlad, oh, finally you guys arrived. Aizawa, yeah, the driver was late. Vlad, good thing we arrived early. I see your class is here, Inko. Inko, Vlad, are all your students here? Vlad, yes, now let's get this show on the road, shall we? Aizawa, where is All Might? 13 held up 3 fingers, prompting sighs of disappointment from Inko and Aizawa. Aizawa, Inko, if your husband is still doing hero work, I suggest you tell him he should quit teaching. His words made Inko uncomfortable and she looked down. Inko, okay, I will tell him. Satisfied with her response, Aizawa instructed everyone to follow 13 as they headed inside. Meanwhile, Izumi and Momo introduced their class to the other representatives, Itsuka Kendo and Nairenjiki Shoda. Everyone was in awe of the size of the facility. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker, causing confusion. Momo, is this normal, sensei? No, if the lights are flickering once or twice, that's normal, but this is not. Inko checked her phone and saw there was no service. Inko, there's no service. That's impossible. This place should have cell service. Aizawa narrowed his eyes as he looked at the center of the USJ and saw a small dot floating, which suddenly became larger. This time, the black dot had yellow eyes, and a figure with a hand on their face and arms walked out, followed by many others. Kirishima, hey, is this part of the training? Aizawa, no, it's not. Everyone evacuate. Those are real villains. Panic spread among the students, while a few looked serious. Izumi and Kendo instructed their class to evacuate, and 13 led them out. However, they were blocked by the same villain who had teleported the others. Villain, I'm afraid I can't let you go. The villain who had teleported the others suddenly appeared in front of them, blocking their only way out. Back with Aizawa, who was fighting off low-class villains alongside Inko and Vlad, he noticed the warp villain was missing. Aizawa, dang it. I look away for a moment, and the warp villain is gone. Inko, I can get to the exit, I just need an opening. "Vlad, leave it to me," he shouted, manipulating his blood to create a wave that knocked out the surrounding villains. Inko floated toward the exit and saw the students getting warped. Just as she was about to stop the villain, she was intercepted by a bat-like villain, causing them both to hit the ground near the remaining students. Most of the students had been split into different areas. Now we turn to Izumi, who was at the shipwreck area with Minetta, Azui from 1A, Setsuna, and Rin from 1B as they devised a plan. One of the villains, resembling a shark with stripes on his face, got on a boat. Out of fear, Minetta pushed Azui toward the villain as he tried to swim away while throwing his purple ball at him. Before the villain could reach Azui, Rin shot his quirk, which resembled reptile scales, distracting the villain. Izumi then used her quirk to send the villain flying, which relieved them but also made them furious at Minetta's actions. They looked overboard and saw that Minetta had managed to escape from the villains, but they also noticed that the villains were stuck together because of Minetta's ball. This gave them a chance to escape. Izumi used her quirk to make herself, Azui, Rin, and Setsuna float, and they made it to land. As Izumi brought them down, she turned back and created small waves to keep them together. Back at the center of the USJ, Aizawa and Vlad were fighting off the remaining villains when suddenly a large figure started moving and targeted Vlad. The leader approached Aizawa just as his quirk turned off, causing the blue-haired villain to touch his elbow. For a moment, Aizawa noticed his clothes and some of his skin began to decay, prompting him to move away. "Villain, your quirk is impressive but has a flaw. Want to know how I found out? Your hair." Aizawa's eyes widened, despite his goggles blocking them. Just then, he was hit by an unknown object that sent him skidding back to the stairs. He recovered and saw Vlad, beaten up, while the large creature stood beside the leader. "Villain, like my friend here, he is designed to kill a certain hero here in Japan." Aizawa, who are you and what do you want? "Shigaraki, you can call me Shigaraki, and what I want is to end your symbol of peace." Aizawa's eyes widened at what he heard. He hated All Might for what he did to his nephew, but All Might was the one who kept the villains in check and ensured the crime rate remained low. "Aizawa, I have bad news for you. He groaned in pain, is not here." Shigaraki, oh, I know. That's why I'm going to kill your students and let him see how much of a failure of a hero he really is. As Shigaraki got closer to Vlad, Aizawa remembered the effects of his quirk. He tried to get up but was still suffering from his recent injuries and could only use one arm. Before the leader could come close, he suddenly stopped. "Shigaraki, I can't move. That means only one thing." He looked up and saw Telek floating down, standing in front of an injured Aizawa and a knocked-out Vlad. "Inko, I won't let you touch them." "Shigaraki, Telek, I have business with your child." "Inko, what do you?" "Shigaraki, Nomo." The muscle-bound creature moved toward Inko. She let go of Shigaraki and faced the monster, pushing it away from them. Then she noticed that all the villains they had fought earlier were getting back up and surrounding them. "Shigaraki, do you still think you can handle all of us? You're on your own with no help." He gestured to the surrounding villains as the Nomu stood beside its leader. Inko could handle the low-class villains, but the Nomu presented a significant challenge. "Inko, damn it Toshi, where the hell are you?" Suddenly, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked back and saw Aizawa standing with Vlad, who had regained consciousness. The three were now side by side. "Aizawa, she's not alone." "Inko, Aizawa, you need to rest. You're not okay." "Aizawa, not an option. Besides, Vlad and I can take care of the other villains. Can you handle the big one?" "Inko, I can try." "Aizawa, don't try, do it." Just as they were about to make their move, the warp villains suddenly appeared, making the three heroes nervous. "Shigaraki, Kurogyri, what's the status of the student?" "Kurogyri, I managed to separate all of them easily and took out 13, but one student managed to get away. They caught me by surprise." "Shigaraki, no matter. We're almost finished taking out Aizawa and Vlad." As he spoke, the villains charged at them, but then someone shouted, "Leave them alone." Unexpectedly, their students from 1A, Izumi, Katsumi, Shoto, Kirishima, and from 1B, Kendo, Shishida, Reiko, Kaibara, and Kamakiri, stood in front of their teachers. Katsuki, what the hell are you guys doing? Kendo, protecting you, sensei. You guys look worn out. Aizawa, we appreciate what you're doing, but this isn't a child's game. Shoto, we know, but with your condition, sensei, I doubt you can handle this with one hand. Aizawa, my well-being is not your concern. Izumi, yes, it is our concern, she shouted, making everyone look at her. I already lost one family member. I don't plan to lose another too. The 1B students were confused by her words, but the rest understood. Suddenly, Shigaraki clapped his hands, drawing their attention. Shigaraki, what a great performance you had there. It seems you did something wrong. Katsumi, and what the hell do you know? Shigaraki, oh, I know all right. And I will never forgive you for what you did. Everyone fell silent, wondering what he meant. Just then, the door of the E burst open, and All Might entered, not smiling. He proceeded to knock out every villain until he reached the spot where his injured colleague and wife were. Everyone felt relieved that he had finally arrived, except for Aizawa, who looked at him with anger. Aizawa, where in the hell have you been? On the other side of the globe. All Might, my apologies, Aizawa. I was. Aizawa, save your apology and deal with that thing already. Shigaraki, I agree. Nomu attack All Might. The Nomu roared and charged at All Might. The two clashed their fists, creating a shockwave that sent everyone flying. Thanks to Shoto, who froze their feet to the ground, they were prevented from being thrown away, but the villains were sent flying throughout the USJ. As the two fought, they noticed that All Might's punches were not affecting the Nomu. To their surprise, All Might was pushed back toward the students. Kirishima, All Might, what's wrong? Normally, you would send that thing flying by now. All Might, I don't know. Somehow, he is on par with my strength. Shigaraki, you are correct. My Nomu is designed to match your strength, but that's not all he has. Izumi, wait, you mean that thing has multiple quirks? Everyone's eyes widened at her realization as Shigaraki laughed in amusement. Shigaraki, very observant. You are correct. He noticed more people entering the USJ. Shigaraki, well, it seems our time is up. Kurogyri, let's go. Kurogyri, understood. As they prepared to leave, Katsuki Bakugou flew towards the three main villains. The rest of the class and professors shouted at him to stop, but he didn't listen. Shigaraki looked at him with an unimpressed and furious expression and snapped his fingers. The Nomu backhanded Katsuki, sending him flying up the stairs. Kirishima was the only one to check on him as the rest kept their eyes on the villains. Shigaraki, let this be a warning to all of you. This is just the beginning. And to you first years, he pointed specifically at Izumi and her class, none of you deserve to be here at UA after what you did, especially to my friend. With that, he and the Nomu vanished using Kurogyri's quirk, leaving the students in shock and disbelief. Meanwhile, somewhere in Canada, where it was snowing, Izuku was readying his sickle as he approached a warehouse full of weapons and drags. He noticed a body, more specifically, a dead body. Upon entering, he saw many more dead bodies, each with arrows sticking out of them. Upon closer inspection, he recognized the arrows as being made of light. Izuku, to think that you would come here personally. He spoke to a figure hiding behind one of the pillars. Beside her was a shadow that formed into a wolf. Izuku, kindred a wolf. After the attack at the USJ, Aizawa and Vlad were taken to the hospital for their injuries. The rest of the class was still traumatized by what had happened, except for a few who shrugged it off. Izumi was looking for someone and, upon spotting him, marched towards him furiously. The others noticed as she stood in front of the person who had almost cost her friend's life. Minetta, Izumi, He didn't get to finish his sentence before she kicked him with full force, sending him crashing into a police car. As he looked at her, she tried to walk away, but the girls stopped her. Using her quirk, she pushed them aside. When someone pulled her back, she didn't care who it was. She was furious at what Minetta had done. Izumi, you have some nerve to be in this school, you useless coward. Kaminari, whoa, Izumi, calm down. Sato, what happened? Izumi, why don't you ask that coward? They all looked at Minetta, who stared back with regret, unable to say anything. Izumi, tell them. Inko, Izumi, what are you talking about? Mina, yeah, what happened? Rin, I'll tell you what happened. Rin stepped forward, making Class 1A focus on him. Rin, you see, one of your classmates was almost killed by a villain, someone who looks like a frog. Hagakure, Tsu. What happened? That midget pushed her toward the villain while leaving us to defend ourselves. But she was lucky that your green-haired friend used her quirk and saved her. As Rin recounted the events, the class looked at Minetta with disbelief. Suddenly, a dark figure grabbed Minetta by the neck. Shoji, Dark Shadow? Tokoyami. They all turned to Tokoyami, whose expression was fierce. Dark Shadow's eyes, usually yellow, were now red. Tokoyami/Dark Shadow, you tried to kill Azui, how about I take you out now? The two said to Minetta, Dark Shadow growing larger as Tokoyami glared at him without remorse. The onlookers were frozen in fear. They had never seen Tokoyami this angry. Just as he was about to act, he felt someone hug him from behind. He turned to see Tsu, tears streaming down her face. Tsu, Tokoyami, please stop. Tokoyami, why? He pushed you toward the villains and left you behind. He won't get away with this. Tsu, and he won't. Please let him go, he's not worth it. Tokoyami looked into her eyes and sighed. Tokoyami, Dark Shadow. With that, Dark Shadow returned to Tokoyami's side. Tsuyu patted his head, which he appreciated. The police then arrested Minetta without resistance. The rest of the class looked at him with disgust and disappointment. Inko instructed the class to head home while she dealt with the police work. An hour passed, and the UA staff discussed the sudden attack. Nizu, this is certainly unexpected. Midnight, to think that the villains would attack. Snipe, not only that, they managed to infiltrate UA. Vlad King, and what's worse, they have a wrapped villain, which will be problematic. Vlad King had his right arm in a cast while Aizawa was still being treated in Recovery Girl's office. Just then, the door opened, revealing Recovery Girl. Nizu, how is he? RG, he's fine, aside from broken arms, cracked ribs, and a fractured skull. He's stubborn and wants me to use my quirk to heal him faster, but I told him he needs to recover first. PM, that's Shota for you, he's always stubborn. Cementos, and what of All Might? RG, his old wound has reopened. I had to stitch it up all over again, but he'll live. Inko felt a bit relieved. Nizu, it appears we have a new threat in Japan that will be a problem. Inko, what are we going to do, sir? Nizu, for now, we wait for the detective to give us more information about the attacker and their motives. Inko, sir? Nizu, yes, Inko? Inko, the one in charge of the villain attack said something about Izumi and her class. None of you deserve to be here in UA after what you did, especially to my friend. I don't know what he means, and neither does Izumi. Nizu started scratching his chin thoughtfully. Nizu, well, we can only assume they are targeting future heroes. There's something they did that we don't know about. Inko, but they say they didn't do anything. Nizu, I'll be the judge of that. Inko, next week you and I will go to Class 1A, and I'm bringing someone with me to help. Inko, may I ask who, sir? Nizu, he's an old friend of mine. None of you know him. That will be all. Take the students back to UA while the rest of us figure out who we are dealing with. Inko didn't say anything else as she followed the principal's orders, taking the class, minus Minetta, back to school. One by one, they got inside the bus, all traumatized by what had happened. But for Izumi, she couldn't help but think of what the leader had said to them. Meanwhile, Izuku was on a mission against a drag lord in New York City who was trying to take over the city. The mayor was powerless, having been compromised, and now he was being hanged from the flagpole outside his office. The drag lord, now on the run, was shooting behind him in a panic, but it was useless. He finally reached the parking lot and spotted his Ferrari F8. As he got in and started the ignition, he heard a whistle that sent shivers down his spine. Looking forward, he saw Izuku, brandishing sickles dripping with blood. The drag lord stomped on the gas, trying to run him down, but Izuku phased through him, causing him to panic. He sped toward the exit, glancing in the rearview mirror, thinking he was safe. He slowed down, and that was his big mistake. The last thing he heard was a gunshot, bang. It happened so fast as the car started swiveling and hit the pillar. As Izuku approached the driver's seat, he caught a glimpse of the deceased drag lord. "Headshot," was all he said before disappearing into the shadows as the police arrived. Izuku stood outside the building, blending with the crowd as he walked away, sending a final message to the US. While walking, he couldn't stop thinking about his conversation with Kindred. Flashback. Izuku and Kindred exchanged glances as her wolf circled around them until it stopped beside her. "Kindred, it's been a while." Izuku, "Indeed it has. What brings you here?" Kindred, "Is it bad to visit my favorite person?" Izuku, "By favorite person, you mean target practice?" Wolf, "Yes." Kindred, "Wolf, be nice. Now, as for the reason I'm here, I've come to deliver a message from the three." Izuku looked at her seriously. Kindred, "It is time." Izuku, "That fast, huh?" Kindred, "It would seem so." The wolf continued to circle them. Kindred, "I've been assigned here in the US. In this world, you've been moved to another world, and I'm sure you know where." He didn't respond, keeping his gaze on the city. Izuku, "Before I leave, there's something I want to visit." Kindred, "I'm in no rush as I have unfinished business." She said this as she disappeared into the shadows. Flashback over. We see Izuku standing atop one of the apartments in New York, visiting a fallen hero who had been wrongfully accused of being a villain. When he explained that it wasn't him, no one believed him. Now that the truth had been revealed, everyone felt guilty and wanted to apologize, but he had disappeared, and no one knew where he was, except for Izuku, who had saved him once from being killed by those so-called heroes. Izuku teleported inside to find the person watching the news. Izuku, "Still watching, I see." The person looked at him and nodded. "Yeah, New York's in chaos now." Izuku, "Indeed, and the president has called martial law in the city. No one's coming in or out, but I overheard they will send some help, though it will take time since they have other matters to attend to. I got word that they will pardon my crimes, even though I don't have any. And that's it." Izuku, "What are you going to do?" "Part of me wants to help them, but I also want them to suffer after what they did to me." Izuku, "So what are you going to do? Peter Parker, or should I call you Spider-Man?" Peter, He looked back at the news, which reported that villains, thugs, and killers were on the loose, while no heroes were helping, probably still recovering from the beating Izuku had given them. "Peter, I will help them, but not like before. This time, Spider-Man is dead, they killed him." He stood up, walked to the couch, and lifted it to reveal a hidden case. Kneeling down, he opened it to reveal a suit. "Peter, this one is still a prototype, but it will do." Izuku, "What's the difference between this suit and your previous one?" Peter, "This is made with nanotech, something I've been working on for a long time. It's time to show them a different Spider-Man." Izuku, "And you think this will change things?" Peter, "I don't think, I know." With that, he began to change. Izuku, "Unfortunately, Peter, I'm going back." Peter looked at him in confusion before realizing what he meant. Peter, "Will you come back?" Izuku, "Who knows?" Peter, "I see. I know you saved me before, and I haven't repaid you yet, but I ask for your help." Izuku, All right, but this time it comes with a price." Peter, "I'll do anything because I have nothing to lose." He finished changing and looked out the window before shooting a web. Izuku summoned his wings and flew high. Their first target was a police crew pinned down by gang members and escaped prisoners. Without hesitation, Peter dove down and began to fight them off. The police were relieved to see their hero return, but they noticed he wasn't alone. Izuku dove down, taking out every gang member he saw. The police froze as they saw him. He put his gun in its holster and summoned his dual-bladed scythe. The gang began to retreat, but he wouldn't let them escape, chasing them down one by one. Reporters filmed Spider-Man's return, showcasing how different he was now. For the final thug, Izuku held him by the leg, lifting him high. Thug, please let me go. Izuku, if you don't shut up, I'll shoot you. Thug, yo, you're a hero, right? This isn't how you're supposed to act. Izuku, who says anything about me being a hero? He said in a deep voice, instilling fear in the thug. Spider-Man, Reaper, wait, he called, approaching and crouching down to look at the thug. Spider-Man, you want to live? Then tell us everything you know, no lies or else. He gestured with his scythe, bringing it close to the thug's leg. Thug, Kingpin is planning on taking half of New York City and will talk to the mayor, who is Osborn, to make a deal. Octopus is gathering all of your villains to fight him, leading to a civil war between him and Osborn. That's all I know. Please let me go. He spilled everything as the police heard his confession. Reaper looked at Peter and nodded, then tossed the thug to the cops, making him stumble. Make sure he's locked up and safe, Spider-Man instructed. Why should we take orders from you, freak? An arrogant police officer retorted. Everyone looked at him in shock and horror as Spider-Man turned to him. Because if it weren't for us, you would be dead already, he said in a deep voice, intimidating the officer. Captain Stacy stepped forward and told one of the officers to take the arrogant officer away. Spider-Man, Captain Stacy said. Captain Stacy, Spider-Man replied. Listen, normally I don't do this, but we need your help. Spider-Man remained silent, making the captain uncomfortable. He glanced behind Spider-Man and saw Reaper looking directly at him, instilling fear. As the suspect said, Kingpin wants half of New York, but we can't act because his goons have advanced weapons. Not even the Avengers can take him or Dr. Octopus. We need you. The city needs you. None of them noticed the reporters recording this live. Spider-Man finally spoke. Tell this, Captain, why should I help New York after what they did to me for the past few weeks? The nearby police looked away, and the civilians watching the news felt guilty, as did the so-called heroes. Give me one good reason why I should help now? Spider-Man waited for an answer, but the captain was silent. He turned to leave when Captain Stacy called out, Wait. Spider-Man stopped but didn't look back. Full pardon, everything. No records of you being a criminal, even for what you're doing now. If the government refuses, I'll force them if I have to. Just please help us. Save innocents, save New York. The captain knelt on one knee and bowed his head. Soon, all the police in the area were kneeling, followed by reporters and civilians hiding nearby. Spider-Man looked at them, then back at Reaper, who had his arms crossed. Your move, Spider-Man, Izuku said, glancing at the captain. His AI informed him that Electro and Vulture were at the power plant, draining all power. If that continued, everything with advanced technology would go into lockdown mode until power was restored, which would take around 24 hours. Have your team meet me at the power plant. Electro and Vulture are there now, Spider-Man said before shooting a web to the building and swinging toward the power plant, with Reaper following closely. When they arrived at the power plant, they spotted Electro and Vulture standing on a nearby rooftop. What do you plan on doing once you subdue them? Izuku asked. I can give them something to remember and show them my breaking point, Spider-Man replied. Let's make this quick, shall we? Izuku said, pulling out his death/Lobo sickle, indicating that this fight was about to get intense. Their souls will suffice as payment for my help. I accept, Spider-Man said, and they both jumped into action, knowing this fight would be nothing but chaos. Meanwhile, in the tallest building in the city, 3 figures looked down at New York, preparing to collect the souls of the fallen. It's time for him to go back to his world, Reaper said. Indeed, and this world will know fear, Lobo/Death added. And Spider-Man? Mouthful inquired. One last push and he will become one of us. After all, it's his breaking point. I put you in charge of him, Reaper responded. To think that one of the greatest heroes in New York would become one of us. From what I see in different worlds, 90% of him is a hero, 5% is dead, and the other 5%. Well, let's say New York isn't the same anymore, Lobo remarked. What's done is done. There is no going back, Malphal said, summoning an orb as they watched Spider-Man battling his villains and Izuku taking down Kingpin's gang, holding Vulture by the neck with one hand. Let's see how this unfolds, Malphal said, as the three figures prepared for the chaos to come. He made them quiet as the reporters recorded what Reaper was saying when Spider-Man landed next to him, holding the unconscious Electro. Is he dead? Spider-Man asked, which made everyone silent. They knew Spider-Man didn't kill, but after what had happened to him, their hopes were slim. Unfortunately, no. Just knocked out, Spider-Man replied. What a shame, Reaper said. Suddenly, he looked at the skyscraper where he could see his three teachers watching him and nodded. It seems my time in this world is done, Reaper stated. Leaving now? Spider-Man asked. Yes, I have other things to do, Reaper said as he started to walk away, but he was stopped by none other than the Avengers. Excuse me, but you can't leave yet. The party's just getting started, Iron Man said. That's enough, Spider-Man. You made your point, Steve Rogers reasoned with Spider-Man, who narrowed his eyes at them. Well, what do we have here? The so-called heroes who haven't done anything to save New York, Reaper remarked. Hey, we saved this city multiple times. Hawkeye shot back. But not the small crimes. Have you ever thought about that? They will grow into something more dangerous. No, you don't think. Reaper retorted. Before they could reply, Spider-Man grabbed Reaper's shoulder. You should leave. Let me handle this, he said as Reaper nodded and walked away. You're not going anywhere, Iron Man said, lunging toward Reaper, but was pulled back and slammed hard onto the floor. Spider-Man, what are? Iron Man began, but without warning, Peter punched the arc reactor of the suit, causing it to shut down. He then threw it back to the Avengers, where Clint and Pym caught it. Spider-Man, stop. Natasha shouted. This isn't you. You're better than this. Ms. Marvel said, a former love of Spider-Man who had since moved on. Peter looked at them seriously, not cracking a joke. You're right. This isn't me. This is a monster that you and this city created, he said with so much hate that their guilt felt heavier than before. Before he could speak again, his instincts kicked in as he turned around and grabbed a person's neck just as he was stabbed in the chest. It was Scorpion. Goodbye, Spider-Man, Scorpion said with a malicious smile, unaware that the poison was now in his system. But Spider-Man tightened his grip around Scorpion's neck, causing him to struggle. Spider-Man then used his suit's spider arms to cut off Scorpion's poisonous tail and threw him into one of the electricity distribution boxes. He removed the tail end and examined it closely. I've had enough of this, he said before getting close to Scorpion and grabbing his neck, lifting him up. Wait, please. Mercy. Scorpion pleaded. Spider-Man looked at him as everyone watched, thinking he would let him go or at least give him a warning, but they were all wrong. All out of mercy, was all he said before stabbing Scorpion in the side of the head with his own tail, shocking everyone who witnessed it. A reporter covered her mouth to keep from being sick, and the cameraman struggled to maintain composure. Captain Stacy couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. He knew Spider-Man didn't kill, and this was the first time he had seen him do so. Reaper, watching from afar, smirked as the other three nodded in approval. This universe had a new death, as Hela, the goddess of death, hadn't been doing anything, and now Spider-Man, the city's light and symbol of hope, had fallen into darkness, becoming something more than those so-called heroes. After observing, Malphal waved his hand, opening a portal as Reaper, Izuku, entered it, returning to his world, a place filled with fake heroes. Back in the MHA world, Nizu and the other staff of UA were helping Detective Naomesa with the villains who attacked the USJ. They had captured 50 villains while 3 escaped, including the leader. So far, the villains kept saying that someone else recruited them and it wasn't the leader. The name of the one who recruited them remains unknown since they couldn't remember what he looked like, Naomesa reported. Is that so? Any updates on the villains who escaped? Nizu asked. Besides their names, none so far. The first one they call Kurogiri. He is their main transport and can warp anywhere he pleases, Naomesa explained. A warp quirk is pretty rare these days, and to think he became a villain, Inko remarked. Agreed. If he were a hero, we would have a clear advantage, Midnight added. We can't do anything now that he chose his side. What about the other two? Naomasa continued. The one with multiple hands on his body is the leader named Shigaraki. His quirk is unknown since he just stood there, observing and ordering the villains to take out the students, Naomasa said. Human intelligence is also rare these days. They mostly rely on their quirks instead of their brains, Nizu commented, making the teachers feel a bit hurt, but they shrugged it off. And what about the monster he controls? Naomasa asked. I'm sorry, but we have no clue what it is. I still need evidence, and the villains can't cooperate because they don't know what it is, besides calling it the Nomu and their group the League of Villains, Naomasa replied. Sigh, is that all? Nizu asked. Yes, Naomasa confirmed. Well, there is nothing else we can do but be cautious around this League of Villains. We don't know any of them or their goals, but we must be very cautious. Inko, are you positive about what he said last time? Nizu inquired. Inko, yes sir, and the way he says it with so much hate. Nizu, it would appear that his target is the future heroes. Then we must double the security in UA. They have infiltrated not once but twice already. Nizu, already ahead of you, Toshinori. I'm also planning on creating a dorm for our students. We cannot protect them in their homes. Now, it's your job to tell their parents about this. Any problems? UA staff, none sir. Nizu good. You will do this task tomorrow, except you, Cementos. I need your assistance in the construction of the dorm, and don't worry, you will receive double pay for this. Cementos, thank you sir. Mike, and how long before the dorms are finished? Nizu, they will be ready in about 2 weeks, so you have enough time to inform your students and their parents about the dorm. As the meeting ended, Nizu was left alone to ponder who these attackers were. Meanwhile, in a hidden base, a purple warp appeared as Shigaraki and the Nomu emerged, looking at a figure seated with a machine hooked up to him, gazing at a monitor. I take it the attack on the USJ was a success? Shigaraki, yes, it was a success. And I take it you brought the Nomu here. Did you kill All Might? Shigaraki, no, sir. He didn't kill him, I told them to retreat. The figure looked at him, not in disappointment but with curiosity. Oh, and do tell me why? Shigaraki, because I think we still need the Nomu. I understand that he can withstand All Might, but there are other heroes arriving. I know the Nomu can handle them, but I won't take any chances since this Nomu can be useful one day. The figure smiled. You're learning. It seems your friend's intelligence is rubbing off on you. Shigaraki clenched his fist, still unable to believe that. His only friend had died. He swore he would get his revenge. Shigaraki, I will not stop until they get what they deserve. And they will, my dear boy. Now leave the Nomu here, and you and Kurogiri can go. Shigaraki said nothing as Kurogiri opened a warp, sending them back to their base, leaving the leader alone with the Nomu as he looked at the news monitor. I too want revenge. For they killed my son. Zooming out, we see a small table with water and a picture frame of him holding a green-haired baby, crying in the photo. Izuku, my boy, I will make them pay. On top of Tokyo Tower, Izuku stood, looking at the city. Izuku, Japan, it has been a while since I've seen this kind of beauty, aside from the villains doing anything stupid. Yet this world is filled with corrupted people. He teleported inside and blended into the crowd as he walked the streets of Tokyo. He recognized the bustling pedestrian lanes of Shibuya Station when he heard a gunshot, making everyone duck down except him. He saw 2 racing cars being chased by heroes, one of whom he recognized, a hero with bunny features, wearing a sleeveless white leotard with dark purple trim. This was Mirko, the number 5 hero in Japan. Mirko, get back here. She was tailing the 2 cars as they tried to lose her, but she was just as fast. As they neared where Izuku stood, the crowd cleared out, leaving him alone and unfazed. Mirko, get out of the way. She shouted, but he didn't move. The 2 cars sped up, and Izuku summoned his dual sickle, mouthful. One of the cars tried to ram him, but he sidestepped and sliced the wheel, causing the car to lose control and crash into another vehicle. The other car came to a full stop, and the suspect tried to flee but was quickly captured by the police, while the heroes checked on the crashed car. Fortunately, Everyone was alive, though one had an injured rib and a fractured skull. Mirko went to check the area where she saw Izuku standing, only to find nothing. She looked around, asking questions about the person who had been there, but he was long gone. Izuku, having walked into an alleyway to lose the heroes and police, encountered 10 thugs armed with knives and metal pipes, who looked at him with interest. Thug 1. Looky here, boys, looks like someone is lost. The thugs laughed as the one who spoke looped his arms around Izuku and pointed a knife at his stomach. Thug 1. How about this? You give us what you have, and we'll let you go. Simple as that. The others laughed, waiting for his reaction until Izuku mumbled something the thug didn't hear. Leaning closer, Thug 1 asked. Thug 1, what did you say? Izuku, how fast can you react? Before the thug could comprehend, he felt something sharp at his neck. In an instant, his head rolled towards his friends, who stared in shock. Izuku swung his sickle and disarmed the remaining thugs, readying their quirks as they looked at him in fear. Izuku. That was all he said as the camera zoomed out of the scene. Those nearby heard slashes and screams, calling for the police. After a few minutes, the police arrived to a horrific scene that made a rookie officer puke near the garbage. The senior officer, trying to maintain composure, looked around and saw bodies scattered, limbs everywhere, with deep cuts. He noticed a wall dripping with blood, and upon looking up, he saw a message written in the victim's blood. Japan, I'm here. The rookie, still shaken, ran back to where he had just been sick. The senior officer called for backup, unaware that Izuku was standing on the roof, looking down, blood dripping from his blade as he spun it before placing it back in its holster and turning away, leaving the area as more police arrived to block the crime scene. Chapter end.